Dr. Patra, you can start with the introduction.
Okay, sir. Very good morning to everyone. Now today we have Dr. M. Chawak, who is our resource person for today's speech. Really, we are happy to have with us such a great person. So to introduce Dr. Chawak sir, just I have a few words about him. Uh, So Dr. Milind M. Chavak, who is the General Manager of Poultry Diagnostics and Research Center, Venkateswara Hatcheries, Pune. Dr. Chavak is entered in the veterinary profession since 1986. He did his master's in poultry science and PhD in the avian diseases and worked as scientist in Project Directorate on Poultry, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and served for 10 years. He devoted his scientific career for research on various aspects of poultry production and development of breed on Bonraja suitable for Indian rural conditions. Since 2003, he joined PDRC Venkateswara Hatcheries Private Limited and has been working actively in the disease investigation and research in avian diseases. He also played an active role in training of poultry professionals. Over 28 years, he has been bonded with scientific activities in the poultry research, production, as well as development, keeping in mind overall progress of poultry disease in India. Acted as article reviewer for reputed journals and published many research or review articles in national and international journals in the field of poultry health and avian diseases. Presently, he is in the prestigious position that is the Secretary of World Poultry Science Association of Indian branch. So today, we are really happy to have with us such a nice person before us. Sir, we are eagerly waiting for your kind lecture, sir.
Good morning, everybody. So today's topic is cross pathology and histopathology of avian disease. It's a very vast topic and it's very difficult to complete within 1 hour, but I will try to finish within 1 hour. So as we all are aware that since last 15-20 years, poultry growth is very fast. Every year it's growing at the 8 to 10% growth is there. And you know that when there is a growth, the growth is haphazard. That means its growth is there in certain pockets of country. And because of this haphazard growth, there are always outbreaks of various diseases, and it's a never-ending challenge. So when it's a never-ending challenge, it's very important to have the epidemiological data of poultry diseases, and then timely and accurate diagnosis of disease is important because the lifespan of particularly broilers is very short, and even in layers also it's hardly 64 to 74 weeks we can keep the birds. And if we cannot diagnose the disease in timely and accurate manner, then definitely it will cause heavy economic losses to the farmers. So there are various viral diseases in poultry like Newcastle disease, avian influenza, infectious bronchitis, ILT, pneumoviruses, IPD, CAV, adenoviruses, MD, reoviruses, leukosis, then chicken astroviruses, then chicken parvoviruses, even avian encephalomyelitis, smallpox, etc. So many bacterial diseases are also there: salmonellosis, colabacillosis, fall cholera, infectious coryza, and avian mycoplasmosis. So common fungal diseases of poultry are aspergillosis, candidiasis, Febus, and protozoan diseases are coccidiosis, histomoniasis, leukocytozoan, and avian malaria also is seen. There are certain non-infectious causes also which affect the poultry and which are responsible for causing stress and thereby causing immunosuppression in poultry, and thereby the poultry are susceptible, birds are susceptible to various diseases. So these non-infectious causes are increased stocking density, weighing or grading stress because of weighing, grading, faulty brooding conditions, improper handling of birds, excessive dust, weight litter in houses. Nutritional causes are there: mycotoxins, toxic metals, poor water quality, feed and water deprivation, rancidity and oxidized fat, and some environmental factors like inadequate temperature, inadequate ventilation, or excessive lighting. So these all in non-infectious causes, they can affect the health of the birds. So for the disease diagnosis, for the key points in any disease investigation is to do it in a correct and systematic way. So we should have first the flock history, then we should examine the flock, we should observe the clinical signs and symptoms, then we can examine individual birds also, morbid birds also, then we can proceed for postmortem examination, and then lastly it comes laboratory diagnostic test. So the practical approaches for diagnosis of poultry diseases are clinical diagnosis, then rapid field diagnostic test, histopathology, serology, molecular. Some we can have some molecular techniques also, employ some molecular techniques also, isolation, identification, and characterization of pathogen, and lastly we can do direct or indirect electron microscopy also. So to do all these things, of course, you must be aware of these things, that how to collect these specimen or samples for virus isolation, for bacterial isolation, for PCR testing, histopathology, and serological assays. So, and then various organs need to be collected for various, when we are suspecting for various diseases. If it is we are suspecting for adenovirus, then we should collect the sample of liver, feces, spleen, bursa, pharynx, kidneys, PV, proventriculus, gizzard, and affected organs. So likewise, there are so many disease conditions, and accordingly we can collect the uh, organs. So various poultry diseases, they produce various maladies, wide variety of symptoms. So if it is emaciation, we can suspect for off-feed nutritional deficiencies, lymphoid leukosis, enteritis, gizzard infection, tuberculosis, and even unknown causes also. So likewise, there are so many possible symptoms and so many possible causes are there. So my presentation will be with you, so I don't have to enlist all these things. So for each organ, suppose eye is there, so watery eyes, you can suspect for infectious coryza. For blindness, smallpox, aspergillosis, Arizona infection, or paratyphoid also you can suspect. When droppings is bloody, you can suspect for sickle coccidiosis. When it is sulfur yellow color, you can suspect for blackhead disease. So many things are there. If the production drop is sudden, severe drop, then you can suspect for some Newcastle disease, infectious bronchitis, ILT, influenza, mycotoxins, mismanagements. When eggs are wrinkled or depigmented, you can suspect for necrotic enteritis, infectious bronchitis also. But all these symptoms, they need to be correlated with history of the flock and uh, the gross changes and histopathological changes. So when you do the antemortem examination, First, you should check for the comb, wattles, and shank for pox lesion, paleness, blue comb, etc. If it is a facial swelling, uh, it needs to be checked. Conjunctiva, then buccal cavity, then wing rot or dermatitis, peking or prolapse, whether it is present or not. Even for external parasites, you can check. For fractures and mechanical injury, you can check while doing antemortem examination. Then you start with the postmortem examination. Postmortem examination of dead and ichthyocyte birds is an essential step for correct diagnosis. For this, representative birds from affected flock must be selected, and both sick and dead birds should be opened. Cull birds will not provide any answer for diagnosis. So how do you interpret the gross lesions? First, the common lesions should be observed in many birds, and there should be variation in size, color, shape, and consistency of organs. And you should check for presence of abnormal fluid, exudates, or moss in abdominal cavity, etc. So, differential diagnosis should be based on clinical signs, symptoms, and gross lesions. And sometimes it is very difficult to diagnose the disease because in some cases, practically, the lesions are not there, or the bookish lesions are not there. Whatever we have learned in books, the lesions are something different, and then it's very difficult to diagnose the disease. So sometimes even disease complex will be there. So multiple pathogens are involved particularly in immunosuppressive cases, which leads to gangrenous dermatitis, gizzard erosion complex. Even you can see the gangrene, fowl pox, etc. So in that case, identification of primary pathogen and at the same time treatment of secondary pathogens is very important. So we can start with organ-wise gross lesions, how they can see. So first we have to see the normal lung, how it looks. Then only you can appreciate the changes in the particularly how it looks and the how you feel it. So this particularly is aspergillosis in lung. You can see the whitish phagocyte-like nodules in lung. These are of aspergillosis. In case of chronic respiratory disease, lung looks like it's a consolidated lung, and even you can see the cheesy mass over it. Then regarding heart, it's a normal heart. And in Salmonella cases, sometimes you can see the nodular lesions on heart. So it's very difficult to recognize also. It's a heart only. In IBH, straw-colored fluid, which is accumulated in the pericardium. And sometimes while doing postmortem, you can break this pericardial sac and you may not notice the fluid. So it's very, you should be very careful while opening the bird. Then in fowl cholera, you can see these petechial hemorrhages on heart. They are very typical. Liver, of course, it's a normal liver. And here you can see this thick yellowish fibrinous layer covering the liver. In salmonellosis, you can see this necrotic foci on liver, and the color of liver, of course, it changes. In Salmonella pularum cases, you can see the bronzing of liver. It's very evident in Salmonella pularum cases, or even in Gallinarum also you can see this bronzing of liver with a necrotic foci on small necrotic foci on liver. And particularly in staphylococcal infection, which you can see it in growers when there is a lot of stress on the birds, particularly in breeders, when you restrict the feed at that time, the bird picks up litter and sometimes they develop this staphylococcal infection. And in these cases, you can see this multiple necrotic foci, big multiple necrotic foci on liver. Again, you can see this in IBH cases or adenoviral infection. You can see this swollen liver with hemorrhagic foci. They are very evident. In toxicity cases, liver is very pale, fragile, and it's very fragile, and it's very pale also. And sometimes if it is acute case, then you can see these hemorrhagic patches over liver. That is fatty liver hemorrhagic syndrome. You can say fatty liver hemorrhagic syndrome. In histomoniasis, particularly this condition can be seen in desi birds. You can see this necrotic liver, big patches of necrosis. They are very typical, and sickle core. These cases are very typical. You can never forget. If you see once, then you can never forget. This is Murex disease. You can see the liver is enlarged and show tumor lesions. In this condition, you can see the tumors in kidney also, even in all abdominal cavity. You can see on mesentery also tumors, on lung and other abdominal regions. In lymphoid leukosis, there is a marked enlargement of liver, and spleen also gets enlarged, and it's a diffuse type of tumors are there. In myeloid leukosis, typical bitey smooth tumorous growth can be seen in liver. It's a myeloid leukosis. Nowadays, Murex, of course, age previously what we have studied is Murex disease and lymphoid leukosis differentiation. Murex disease is used to be seen in early age, and then lymphoid leukosis is to be seen in later age. But nowadays, that kind of difference is not there, and you can see MD at any age. And of course, lymphoid leukosis you can see it in later age. So this is Murex disease, splenomegaly, if you compare with normal spleen. In spirochetosis, you can see this enlarged mottled spleen. So if you see the kidney, this is a normal kidney. And in gout cases, there is a urate deposition on heart also, on kidney also. The kidney deposits appear to be white chalky coating, and the ureters are enlarged, and the chalky deposits are there. And even in toxicity, you can notice the swollen kidneys. So of course, gout is of multifactorial in origin. There are so many factors which are responsible for gout, like non-infectious causes and infectious causes. In infectious causes, particularly variants of infectious bronchitis or chicken astroviruses, they are responsible for gout in poultry. And in non-infectious causes, deprivation of water, excess vitamin A, or even hatchery problems also, they cause the gout in chicks. This is normal intestine of poultry, and particularly in necrotic enteritis, you can see this. This is a normal intestine, and this is a ballooning. There is a ballooning of intestine, And if you cut open the intestine, there will be a lot of gas and fluid will come out. In Newcastle disease, there is a prominent button ulcers. From outside only you can see this prominent button ulcers in Newcastle disease. Intestinal coccidiosis also, there will be ballooning of intestine, and you can see this white and necrotic foci, even hemorrhages from outside only. So this is a cecal coccidiosis. Ceca are enlarged and distended with blood. And in salmonellosis also you can see this cecal core. It's very prominent in adult birds. If they are chronically infected, then you can observe this kind of condition. So in infectious bursal disease, you know the infectious bursal disease in poultry. So you can observe from outside hemorrhages on muscles, breast muscles, and even on thigh muscles. Lot of hemorrhages you can see. And then if you cut open the birds, you can see in acute cases enlargement of bursa with hemorrhages. And if it's very acute, then lot of hemorrhages and threatening of bursa you can see. And if it is a chronic case, then you can see this atrophied bursa. So all these clinical manifestations and postmortem findings of affected birds may aid to diagnosis of disease. Of course, this is a normal bursa. So again, this is a postmortem lesions of IBD. The virus caused severe morbidity within 3 days of post-inoculation, and hemorrhages are seen on skeletal muscles. The bursas are enlarged and hemorrhagic at 3 days post-inoculation. And the lesions can range from large hemorrhagic bursas to small pinpoint hemorrhages on bursa. And even you can see the hemorrhages at the junction of proventriculus and gizzard. And sometimes you can see the this kaolin layer can easily peel off. This is chicken anemia virus. This is an immunosuppressive disease. It causes weakness, depression, anorexia, and stunting in birds. And anemia is noticeable on comb, wattles, eyelids, and legs. And if it is a purely chicken anemia virus, which is vertically transmitted, then you can see the lesions in at the age of 1 or 2 weeks only. If it is laterally transmitted, then you can see the lesions at the age of 6 to 11 weeks also. Particularly in Indian conditions, we observe chicken anemia virus or immunosuppression at the age of 4 to 5 weeks to 10 to 11 weeks in growing layer chickens. So in this condition, if you observe, this is a normal thymus, thymic lobes, and these are atrophied thymic lobes. So here it's very difficult to see the thymus because it's atrophied. Here it's very small, thymic lobe is there, and here this is a normal thymus, and this is a normal bone, and this is again very pale, and if in that you can see these fatty changes are there. Again, kidneys are very pale, and this is hematocrit value. You can even hematocrit value go as low as 8%. And sometimes you can see the skin lesions also. So that's why it's called as blooming disease. Yeah, again it is CAB. Yeah, here you can see this, you can notice the anemic pale comb. This is a normal bird. This is anemic bird. And again, atrophy of thymus. You can see gangrenous dermatitis in such birds. And bone marrow is very pale and fatty. This is normal bone marrow. And here you can see this fatty bone marrow. This is again a gangrenous dermatitis. And even you can see the hemorrhages on thigh lesion and other pectoral muscles also you can see the hemorrhages. So clinical manifestations associated with fall adenoviruses, you can see the changes, they are very much appreciable. Hemorrhages on liver, then fluid in pericardial sac, and even you can see this gizzard erosion, and this internal kaolin layer gets peeled off very easily. Even you can see the ulcers in gizzard. There are certain pathogens which are associated with avian respiratory infections. Newcastle disease, avian influenza, infectious bronchitis, infectious laryngotracheitis, avian metapneumoviruses, infectious coryza, ornithobacteriosis, mycoplasmosis, and fawn cholera. So these are the pathogens associated with the infections of respiratory. Here you can see in Newcastle disease particularly, its trachea is very much congested, and along with that you can see these hemorrhages on papillary hemorrhages in proventriculus, and even in you can see these ulcers in intestines, and sometimes congestion in brain also. So in avian respiratory complex, you can see such kind of acute lesions, hemorrhagic trachea, a lot of cheesy mass in trachea, and it's very difficult to diagnose the exact condition. So we call it as a syndrome or complex. So based on the gross lesions, it's very difficult to diagnose. Then you have to have the histopathology and other lab test needs to be done in this condition. In ILT, you can see such kind of frank hemorrhages in trachea. They are very pathognomic. And in ILT, you may not see any lesions outside the trachea and lungs. And sometimes you can see the lesions in eye regions, but systematic lesions you may not see. Again, clinical signs, clinical lesions in MD, particularly in neurotropic form, you can see this such kind of lameness in birds, and here you can see the hypertrophied nerves, sciatic nerve, and again here it's a hypertrophy of nerve. Striations are lost, glossiness is lost. Again, spleen is you can see this tumorous lesions in spleen, and then here opacity. This is a normal eye. This is you can see opacity in eye. Again here it is sciatic nerve. Here again it's proventricular now got affected. Here it's corneal opacity is there because of MD, because we have isolated from such cases from eye lesions, we have isolated MD viruses. Here it is very prominent. In kidney also you can see these tumors. In of late we are seeing this kind of lesions in old birds, and when we uh, do postmortems or isolation studies, then histopathology MD is confirmed, along with some bacterial isolations also. Particularly Staphylococcus aureus, we isolated many species out of such cases. We reproduce also MD in SPF birds. After 5 to 6 weeks of inoculation, we obtained such kind of lesions, even on skeletal muscles also, spleen, kidney. So I was explaining cutaneous form of MD in neck region, even on leg skin also. Fowlpox, so all people must be aware of this kind of lesions. They are very common. Even sometimes you can see tracheal pox also. Nowadays it's very common, tracheal pox. This is abdominal air sacs got affected. You can see this cheesy mass in the abdominal, this particular thoracic air sac, and this is thoracic air sac, and sorry, this abdominal air sac and this is thoracic air sac got affected. Air sacculitis is there. And in coli bacillosis, you can see cheesy mass over liver, heart, which is need to be differentiated with gout. In salmonellosis, I have already explained. This is nodules on heart, and you can see these ovaries. They are pedunculated, coliform, and misformed ovaries are there. Sometimes hemorrhages will be there, and even you can isolate salmonella from these conditions very easily. So infectious coryza, you can see various conditions. Yeah, here also you can see this swelling. Here also you can see the eye region swelling. It's very prominent. Omphalitis, it's because of various reasons, particularly if hatchery management is not proper, and if there is a coli infection in parents or any bacterial infection, or even in salmonella cases also, you can get omphalitis. If faulty brooding is there, you can get a lot of omphalitis cases. Endoparasitic infection, these are the tapeworms in intestine. In layers particularly nowadays, you can see a lot of tapeworms. And these are roundworm infestation in Deshi birds. Coccidiosis cases. These are histomoniosis, gross lesions. If you cut open the liver, then you can see a lot of hemorrhagic patches. It's very peculiar. Recently, we have got some 2-3 cases of avian malaria. So you can see these hemorrhages on muscles. Even on pancreas also you see this hemorrhages. And we isolated, and even in slides also, avian malarial parasites. In leukocytosome cases, you can see these nodulous small nodules on heart, and then even on in spleen also you can see these nodules. Even in gizzard also you can see these small white nodules, and even on comb also the comb is pale and hemorrhages are there. Even in intestine also you can see these hemorrhages. Aflatoxins, the liver is various that depends on the level of aflatoxin in the feed, and the age of the bird, type of the birds, etc. The liver becomes very fragile, fatty, pliable. So in T2 toxins particularly, you can see this erosions or ulcers in commissures of beak. Here it's very typical. These kind of lesions, they are very particular uh, in coastal areas, maybe because of T2 toxins, level of T2 toxins is more in that area. You can see these ulcers in proventriculus also, in gizzard also you can see the ulcers, and particularly in ochratoxins you can see the hypertrophy of kidney, swollen kidneys. Lameness, various conditions are there, lateral deviation, then lateral deviation of right leg, then lateral deviation of right leg in early conditions, valgus formation, that is lateral angulations, and then even there is a medial deviation of leg varus conditions, and maybe sometimes you can see chondrodystrophy or dyschondroplasia. It's a hog joint swelling because of reoviral infection, and you can isolate various bacteria from these lesions like staphylococcus. Then ascites. Ascites condition can be caused because of various conditions, maybe managemental and nutritional factors. Calcium tetany, again, it's very peculiar, particularly in breeders when there is the, at the time of particularly when they start laying, and if the daily production it's increasing very fast, more than 2% per day, then in those birds you can see the lesions of calcium tetany, but it's very difficult to diagnose, particularly from the lesions. You have to correlate with the production and other factors. Then rickets, you can see this particularly rickety rosary here, it's very typical. So these are internal layers. Here you can see this tapeworms also infestation along with internal layer, prolapse in layer parents, or even in you can see you get prolapse in commercial layers also, maybe because of various factors. Then we can come to histopathology. Histopathology significantly contributes to an immediate diagnosis and narrows the further differential diagnosis. We categorize the lesions as a pathognomic, suggestive, and non-specific lesions. And we can have a diagnosis of tumors, differentiation of Marek's disease with ALV and myeloid leukosis. Confirmatory diagnosis we can do by detection of antigen in tissues by immunohistochemistry and immunofluorescence test. And sometimes formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissue can be used for extraction of DNA and RNA, which is possible. So first we come to pathognomic lesions. These are the infectious laryngotracheitis virus induced intranuclear inclusion bodies. They are very pathognomic, and these are adenoviral intranuclear inclusion bodies, and these are Fallpox intracytoplasmic Bollinger bodies. These are intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies. This is a normal trachea, slide of normal trachea showing mucosa and cartilage. And this is ND affected, trachea showing hyperplasia and severe congestion of mucosal layer. In Fallpox, you can see this intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies. And in ILT, you can see this sloughing of mucosa and intranuclear inclusions in the trachea. Lung, this is a normal lung. In aspergillosis, you can see this fungal hyphae present in the bronchi. And in CRD conditions, it's a congestion and edema present in bronchi. And this is a lung of Bruder pneumonia case. It's very typical. This is a normal liver. This is in bacterial infection. This liver showing focal areas of necrosis and infiltration of inflammatory cells. In toxicity condition, this is the liver showing fatty changes and hemorrhages. Again, this is the inclusion body hepatitis, liver showing large deep brick red colored intranuclear inclusion body. This is a short stain. In histomoniasis, this is a liver showing vacuoles with rounded up parasites. This is Grocott strain. This is MD liver showing infiltration of small to large pleomorphic lymphoid cells. These are pleomorphic lymphoid cells. And in LL, there is a diffuse infiltration of lymphoid cells in liver sinusoids. These are not pleomorphic. In myeloid leukosis, infiltrating myelocytes have eccentric nucleus and abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm. This is a normal spleen, and in MD, spleen lymphocytic depletion is there, and RE cell proliferation is also there. In spirochetosis, this is a spleen showing necrosis and RE hyperplasia. This is a normal kidney, and here in toxicity cases, this kidney showing degenerative and necrotic changes along with hemorrhages. This is very typical slide. And in gout condition, it's showing nephritis with urate deposition. Gout kidney showing tophi formation. This is normal intestine showing normal villi, and in coccidiosis, it's intestine showing necrosis of villi and oocysts. You can see the oocyst also. This is normal bursa, and in IBD, it's showing hemorrhages and of the hemorrhages in the follicles. And if it is combined IBD plus CAB cases also, you can see the lot of lymphoid depletion with cystic spaces at places. If you do immunohistochemistry, you can see the antigen also. And in immunofluorescence, also you can see the fluorescence in the follicles. It's a gross and histopathology lesions. So particularly in trachea, you can see this mucosal layer got damaged. In proventriculus, you can see the hemorrhages also. And in brain, you can see the gliosis, and sometimes you can see the hemorrhages also. Bone marrow is very pale here, particularly CAB case. This is the bone marrow showing replacement of bone marrow cells with adipose tissue. This is normal bone marrow packed with hemopoietic tissue. So here you can see a lot of adipose tissue. This is thymus. It's showing clear distinction between cortex and medulla. And here you can see depletion of thymic lymphocytes with loss of distinction between cortex and medulla. When it is a mixed infection, CAV plus FADV, then you can see severe mucosal erosion of gizzard with profuse bacterial colonies in some cases. And here, bursa, you can see atrophied follicles with lymphocytic depletion and cystic changes. And in bone marrow, you can see the replacement of bone marrow cells with adipose tissue. And there is a lot of depletion of lymphocytes in thymus. This is FADV histopathology. That these are the cases we have inoculated in lab. Here you can see this intranuclear inclusion bodies. This is Shore stem. Here also you can see this intranuclear inclusion bodies. This is 9 days post-infection liver. In hematoxylin eosin stain also you can see these intranuclear inclusion bodies. And when you do Machavillo's stain, these are the intranuclear inclusion bodies. So particularly when we isolated chicken astroviruses from gout cases, and it's a major factor in causing gout in commercial broilers in India. So we experimentally reproduced this disease by inoculation of these isolated chicken astroviruses. So here you can see this prominent ureters and urate deposition in kidney and urate deposition on heart. And here you can see this interstitial nephritis and urate deposits in the kidney. And here you can see this infiltration of inflammatory cells in the myocardium, and this is a heart section. So this is ileum from normal broiler chicken, and necrotic enteritis, fibronecrotic material in jejunum. This is multifocal necrosis is there, mucosal sloughing. This is section of duodenum. This is necrotic enteritis in jejunum. This is obliterated, total villi, etc. are obliterated, and it's very difficult to have the typical morphology. It's a thin walled areas are there of jejunum, and reduction of villus length and crypt. So here we can see this normal histology of chickens, and again, if we can compare the, here it is myocarditis, here it is fibrous perihepatitis, here it is edema and congestion of lung, and here it is a focal necrosis of spleen. So to conclude with, differential diagnosis is very much important, and histopathological examination assist in obtaining a final diagnosis. An immediate diagnosis and determination of the etiological agent if the lesions are pathognomic or the compatible with particular disease, then only it is possible. Apart from the conventional techniques, use of molecular techniques is essential for confirmatory diagnosis and characterization of pathogens. Thank you. If you have got any questions, you can ask.
Participants, if you have any questions for our esteemed guest, you may turn on your microphone and we can ask. You can ask directly or you can ask in chat as well, whatever is feasible. If there are any questions, please ask. Turn on your microphone and you can ask. Raja, you have raised your hand. You can ask directly your question.
Participant, please raise your hand or can ask question directly.
Dr. Hitesh, you can ask your question.
Sir, I am speaking Dr. Hitesh from Gujarat, sir. Sir, my question is, what is the current status of bird flu in India?
Since last year, we are getting a lot of cases in bird flu, means highly pathogenic influenza, particularly in North India. We have seen a lot of cases of avian influenza, but right now the cases has been subsided, and at present we don't have any problem as such.
Sir, all cases majority is a low pathogenic avian influenza or high pathogenic?
Low pathogenic avian influenza is almost endemic. So particularly in some seasons we used to get LPI cases. But HPI, particularly last year, in particular sporadic cases we used to get before that in certain pockets. But last year we had more problems in North India. So that's why we cannot say right now this season is approaching. So then only after this winter month only we will be able to tell that exactly what's the situation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dr. Monilis, please ask.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, in our locality, it is Angul district in Odisha. In our locality, sir, farmers mostly complaining that after vaccination of RD, second booster dose, there is immediately outbreak of cold and mortality around 30 to 40%.
Outbreak of what?
Sir, influenza type respiratory symptoms are mostly prevailing.
One thing is it is not related to vaccination. Maybe the birds must be under incubation at that time while vaccination, and because of handling of birds and vaccination, they must have gone in stress condition, and because of that, the other maybe ND might have got precipitated in that. So the birds must be in incubation at that time. It is not related to vaccination.
Okay, thank you.
So participant, again I request, we have got such a nice and expert person in poultry industry. Please do not miss the chance to ask question. Okay, please you may continue again by asking the question. Please.
Any person who wants to ask question, please ask. You can turn on your camera, camera as well as microphone, and then ask the question. Sir, I don't think there are any further questions.
Okay.
We can
So,
formal vote of thanks.
so now I request Dr. M. Pathan, who is the Assistant Professor of Department of Veterinary Physiology and Biochemistry, College of Veterinary Science and Animal Husbandry, Kamdhini University, Anand, Gujarat. I request him to give the vote of thanks to our revered resource person. Please. Dr. Parmar, please.
Hello everyone. Myself. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is audible.
Myself, Dr. R.S. Parmar, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Veterinary Pathology, Veterinary College, Kamdhini University, Sardar Kushinagar, Gujarat. On behalf of organizing team and all participants of this 21-day training entitled with recent advances in veterinary pathology for intensive livestock development, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for this session. My heart fills with lot of gratitude and respect for our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. N.M. Chawak sir, who is working currently as a General Manager, PDRC, Yaptis Limited, for not only sparing his inimitable time for us, but also for enlightening us with his commendable talk on the gross pathology and histopathology of avian diseases. Thank you, sir, as today's lecture was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave insight into the prevalent infectious as well as non-infectious disease of poultry with excellent gross as well as microscopic photographs. Sir, I am pretty sure the precious knowledge of poultry disease diagnosis as well as various differential diagnoses that you share with us will definitely help us in our future endeavors. And again, sir, it is very informative as well as very nice talk. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I am also thankful to all participants for showing their keen interest by actively interacting with Dr. Chawak, sir. Thank you to all participants. Further, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Patra, sir, and organizing committee for providing me opportunity for proposing vote of thanks for this session. Thank you, sir. I am sure that all the participants will definitely benefited with this 21-day training program. I am highly thankful, and I'm also benefit. I will surely say that I'm also benefited by this training program, as there are numerous of distinguished guest speakers that organizing committee has invited for this training program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, Dr. Chavak sir, for sparing the time on particularly on Saturday.
Thank you.
And sir, I seek your help and such cooperation in near future, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste. अच्छा रहिए, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, participant may leave.